Welcome back to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. I'm really excited to have you here again. And if you're new, welcome. We're excited to have you here too. If you want to, you can go ahead and click the little subscribe button down below and the little bell icon so you can be notified when I upload. I do want to give a quick warning that the things we talk about here can be pretty disturbing sometimes, so if that's something that your mental health cannot handle, just go ahead and click off this video and I will catch you somewhere else. The case that we're going to be discussing today includes themes of Satanism and those types of things, and it also involves children. So this can be pretty difficult for some people to listen to, so there's a big trigger warning here for anyone who can't handle themes like that. So again, if it's something you cannot handle, just go ahead and click off and don't watch this video. I won't be offended by it. Your mental health is just way more important. But I'm sure I'm not the only one. In fact, Stranger Things is a wildly popular show right now. I never could get into it in the first couple of seasons, but recently me and my son decided to sit down and watch it. We kind of like watching creepy things together, like Nuke's Top 5 and those types of things. So we decided to sit down and watch Stranger Things, and we finished it in a week. We loved it, and I loved watching it with him. I think watching him get so excited about it was what made me really get into the show. And like the majority of the world, we fell in love with Eddie Munson. So I was surprised to find out that Eddie was loosely based on another person, on a real person, and that person is Damien Echols. That name sounded really familiar to me, so when I Googled his name, it brought up the West Memphis Three. And so I had always known about the case, but I've never done like a really deep dive into it, so I decided for YouTube that that's what we would do today. I do also want to apologize for being absent for 2 weeks. It's been kind of crazy in my area or in my life lately, trying to find a new place to live and all kinds of different things. Work's been really, really hectic lately, so I decided to just hop off for a little bit. And so yeah, so I'm sorry for my going away, but I'm back. Hopefully no more pauses or anything like that. So we're going to really dedicate a lot of time to YouTube and to my TikTok still. So yeah, hopefully I don't have to miss out on anything, but let's dive into today's story. And just one more note, there is a lot of information to this case, so if you see me glancing over here, it's just because I'm referencing my notes, trying to get the accurate information out there. But this case starts with 3 different boys, and they were all from the area of West Memphis, Arkansas. It's a really small town in the Bible Belt of the country. It starts with Christopher Byers. He was born on July 23rd of 1984. He lived with his mother, Melissa Byers, and his stepfather, Mark Byers. Christopher was reported to have a few behavioral problems. It was ADHD, and he was prescribed a medication for it, so he was taking that medication regularly. But he had become friends with the 2 other boys in the area, and that was Michael and Stevie. Michael Moore liked to go by Mike, and he was born on July 27th of 1984. Mike was a natural-born leader. He liked to lead, he was outspoken, and he wanted to be a police officer when he grew up. So he would often dress up as a police officer, and he was very active in the Scouts. Stephen Branch was born on November 28th of 1984. He was a very good student, and he was very, very well liked in his school. His parents were Stephen Branch Sr. and Pamela Hobbs. He had a stepfather named Terry Hobbs. And Terry and Pamela had had another child together, and her name was Amanda. All of these boys were 8 years old, and they were going to Weaver Elementary School. Right before the murders happened, Stevie's grandfather had given him a brand new bicycle. On May 5th of 1983, Stevie was going home on his bicycle. He was accompanied by his mother and his younger sister Amanda, and they were coming home from school together. It was right after this that Mike came to his house and asked him if he would like to go out and play with him, and so that's what they did. Pamela told Stevie that he could stay out until about 4:30 that afternoon, and so off they went with their bicycles. This is where things get really finicky. There's not a definite timeline anywhere. I couldn't find something that was consistent. There were multiple timelines, but all of them said something different. So either way, the 3 boys ran off, and there are multiple accounts of people seeing them around the area, but they were gone from after school. Stevie was supposed to come home by 4:30. He didn't show up. And the last time the boys were seen was about 6:30, and they were headed towards the area of Robin Hood Hills. This is an area where they like to play a lot, and that was where they were last seen. The investigators believe that they were murdered anywhere from 6:30 until 8:30 that evening. But none of the boys would come home and they would never be seen again. It was by that evening that they were all three reported missing, and police did go out and search that night along with a group of parents. They all went out and searched, but it wasn't a big production. There was nothing like that. They were just going out and looking. It wouldn't be until May 6th, the very next day, that the bigger search party would come together and look for the boys. I think it's important to note, though, that the initial search, the night that they went missing, the parents did go look in the area where the boys would eventually be found, and they couldn't see anything. And then on May 6th is when the bigger search came together, and many volunteers came in to look for the boys, and they started about 8 in the morning, and they were looking everywhere. They were looking in the area where they were last seen, which was Robin Hood Hills, and people were walking shoulder to shoulder through the area trying to find anything, and they were not able to find anything at all. It was around 1:45 on the evening of May 6th that somebody would find something in the creek bed. They saw a black shoe that looked to be a young boy's shoe, and they would follow the creek down into another area where there was a drainage ditch. It was in that drainage ditch where they found the three boys' bodies. All three of the boys had been hogtied with their own shoelaces. So their right ankle was tied to their right wrist, and all three of them were naked. The clothes were found around the creek, and they were all inside out, and two of the boys' underwear were never found. All of the boys had appeared to have been beaten, but it seemed like Chris had a few more injuries to his body than the other two boys did. An autopsy was performed, and they did find that the boys had died of a beating, and Stevie and Mike had also died of drowning. Chris was the only one with any type of drugs in his system, but it was just the medication that he had been prescribed for his ADHD. Evidence at the scene led police to believe that the murders had not happened in the drainage ditch. It had happened somewhere else, and the bodies had simply been dumped there. Police also believed that more than one person was involved, as each of the knots in the boys' ties were different. So they really believed that there was more than one person involved in this case. It also didn't take long for police to start blaming this on a satanic ritual. This was still at the height of satanic panic. People were terrified that all of this Satanism was going on and satanic rituals were going on. And so it didn't take long for police to start blaming Satanism for this. Even though there has never been a solid link between satanic rituals and murder, I don't think there is a single case in the United States that can be linked towards a satanic ritual. But police still decided to blame it on this, and that's why Damien Echols became a pretty quick target. Damien was a self-proclaimed Wiccan, and he was not quiet about it. He definitely did not fit into your typical teenage role in the Bible Belt of the country. Damien had also been in some legal trouble for vandalism and shoplifting, so he was just a really easy target for police to look at when it came to this case. Damien's family also wasn't very financially well off. They did struggle a little bit, and social workers were often seen at their house. They just didn't fit into your typical mold that you would have seen in the Bible Belt. Police decided to bring Damien in for questioning, and he told police that he knew nothing about the murders, he was not involved in anything, but he was given a polygraph test, and they determined that he wasn't being honest about it. He was released that day, but brought in again on May 9th for another interview. It was during this time where Damien released or talked about some information that had not been released to the public. One of the boys had more damage done to his private area, and Damien talked about that, and police had not released this information, making them believe that maybe Damien was in fact involved. This case had very little evidence surrounding it, and police had very few leads to go on, so they kept interviewing Damien. They never told him he was a suspect. They simply told him that he was being used for information. So now I'm going to take you back to May 6th, the day that the bodies were found. Vicki Hutchinson was new in town, and she was actually going to the police department that morning to be polygraphed, as she was being accused of stealing money from her West Memphis employer. Vicky brought her son to the police department, who was around the same age as the victims, and he started talking about these satanic rituals. This boy was around the same age as the victims, and he started talking to the police officer who was going to administer the polygraph to Vicky. This little boy's name was Aaron, and he talked about how the boys had been playing at the playhouse, and that's where they had been murdered. This piqued the police officer's interest, and he started talking to Aaron about the boys. The police officer began asking Aaron for more information, and Aaron told him that they had been murdered there, and he had witnessed these murders. He told them that the murders had happened by Satanists who spoke Spanish. This would lead investigators to Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly. But police couldn't find any solid information or any solid evidence that would tie these three older boys to the murders of the three younger boys. Aaron also was not able to pick out Damien or Jesse or Jason out of any photo lineup whatsoever, so this was kind of strange too. So in order to get more evidence, Vicky offered to let them wire her house so they could listen into a conversation, and then have Jesse Miskelly invite Damien over to her house to have like a sort of party or a gathering of some sort, and see if Damien would say anything incriminating. On June 1st of 1993, Jesse introduced Damien to Vicky, and they began talking or just hanging out at Vicky's house. Police listened to the entire recording and captured it all on tape, but they said that nothing was audible in the recordings, while Vicky would later come out and say that the entire thing was audible, you could hear everything, but Damien just hadn't said anything incriminating. He hadn't said anything to imply that he was involved in the murders. But Vicky would also come out and say that she was a part of these satanic rituals, or she had been there, and during one of these rituals, Damien had openly bragged about murdering the boys, and police kind of took this and ran with it. Vicky also came out and said that she had gone to one of these satanic rituals, and Damien had been there, and he was openly bragging about how he had murdered the three boys. But when she was questioned a little deeper onto this, she couldn't recall where the ritual had occurred, and she also couldn't remember anyone else who was there other than Damien. Now, I do want to, I know that this case was pretty heavily publicized everywhere, and that everyone was on Damien's side and Jason Baldwin's side and Jesse Miskelly's side, and I agree. I don't think that they were involved in these murders, but these documentaries a lot of times will kind of gloss over the facts that kind of make them look guilty. And so I do want to note that Damien did have some trouble at school. He was considered to be violent in school, and there was an incident where he would drink human blood. Damien also suffered from some pretty severe mental health issues, bipolar and schizophrenia. Now, I also do want to say that just because you have mental health issues does not mean that you are violent, and it doesn't mean that you are a murderer. That there are more often than not, somebody who has these issues will live a very peaceful life and a very, won't have any legal trouble whatsoever. But when you're in a place like West Memphis, Arkansas, which is in the Bible Belt, a lot of times people will point towards these issues making you a murderer. But like I said, I do just want to point out that Damien had been accused of being violent in school sometimes. He was also on disability for his mental health issues, and he was also very angry at society, it seemed. And I mean, I get it. I grew up in a very conservative town as well, and if you didn't fit the mold, you just didn't fit in. So I understand kind of the anger towards that. If you're not this specific person, you're just not going to fit in, and I get his frustration at that, but he did seem pretty angry at this. Damien also didn't really have an alibi for the time of the murders. He said that he was at home, and that he had talked to multiple ex-girlfriends or friends during this time, and all of these phone calls couldn't be verified with the people. So he didn't really have an alibi during this time. It was on June 3rd that Jesse Miskelly would be brought in for an interrogation. His parents had given police permission to talk to him, but they had not given them permission to interrogate him. It was just a really kind of scummy situation. So police set him down for a 12-hour interrogation. 12 hours. That's a really, really long time to be interrogated. Jesse also had a pretty low IQ. He was given his Miranda rights, but he didn't understand them. He was not given legal counsel. His parents were not in with the interrogation, and Jesse would eventually confess to the murders, and he would implicate Damien Echols and Jason Baldwin in the murders. For 12 hours, he was interrogated, and only 45 minutes of this interrogation was recorded, which I find really weird. Like, maybe there was some coercion going on or something like that. But either way, Jesse was interrogated for 12 hours, and he would eventually confess. His confession made no sense whatsoever, and it would change often. The timeline didn't add up at all. And Jesse had a pretty solid alibi. There was a wrestling match going on in the next town over, and multiple people had seen him there. And this was happening right during the time where the murders supposedly occurred. So really, I kind of lean towards the idea that this investigation or this confession doesn't mean anything. It's not true. It's not real. It was coerced out of him. But either way, they took this confession and ran with it. And Jesse Misskelley, Damien Echols, and Jason Baldwin were all arrested for the murders of the three boys. All three of them would plead not guilty on August 4th. And all three went to trial. During the trial, a lot of witness testimony was used to convict the West Memphis Three. And a lot of this witness testimony would later be recanted. There was a jail cellmate of Jason Baldwin who came forward saying that Jason had confessed everything to him while they were in their cell together. And he went on the witness stand saying how Jason had confessed all of it, but he came out years later saying that this was not true at all, that none of this ever happened, that he had made it up and he didn't know why he made it up. Vicky, the lady who went to the satanic ritual, also said that hers was completely false, that she had never been to a satanic ritual with Damien Echols. He had never confessed to any murders to her, that all of it was false. A lot of people believe that maybe she was making it up to try to get out of trouble when she was accused of stealing from her employer. So as I said before, on Chris's body, there were a few more marks on his groin area, and this led a lot of people to believe that this was a satanic ritual, but it would later come out that there were a certain type of turtle in this drainage ditch, and their bites looked a lot like the marks left on Chris's body. So this might not have been, the fact that Chris had more marks on his body might have been due to turtles in the drainage ditch. It really seems to me like police got tunnel vision on Damien Echols, Jesse Misskelley, and Jason Baldwin, and they made the evidence fit their theory instead of getting a theory from the evidence. But regardless of the evidence, all three boys were found guilty, and Jesse and Jason were sentenced to life in prison, and Damien was sentenced to death. And it wouldn't take long for the case to get a lot of media attention, and a lot of celebrities stood behind the West Memphis Three. That's what they were, were known as, was the West Memphis Three. And the majority of the public believed with their whole heart that they had the wrong people behind bars, that they had not murdered their children. And there was even some of the parents of the three boys that had been murdered started coming forward saying that they didn't think that these three had murdered their children. As soon as they were convicted, all three started working on their appeals and working towards their freedom. But this was going to be an uphill battle. This was going to take a lot of time. They were denied several appeals. No new evidence was really coming forward, and nothing was really going in their favor. Even though the majority of the witness testimony had been recanted, it didn't really give them a chance to get a new trial at all. Then in 2007, there was DNA found that was on one of the shoelaces that did not belong to Damien, Jesse, or Jason. You would think that this would be a major break in the case and that they would immediately be set free, and in fact the lawyers were arguing, saying that they should be immediately released while awaiting a new trial, but this was denied. The judge didn't think that this was enough evidence to release them and give them a new trial. Then in 2008, it was found out that the jury foreman in their first trial was actually talking to the prosecutor before going in for deliberation. This is a big no-no. You cannot do this. And so this really should have ended in a mistrial because of the, talking between the two of them. But again, this was denied. The judge thought that the DNA evidence was inconclusive, and it seems like he didn't really care that the foreman of the original jury and the prosecutor were talking. Which, okay, sure. And they would have to wait until 2011 when a new judge was elected and would be presiding over their case. And to make a really long story short, it was then that they were given what is called an Alfred plea. Now, an Alfred plea is something that you can take saying that you maintain your innocence, but you also understand that they have enough evidence to prosecute you. Essentially, what it is, it's to protect the prosecutors, the legal system. That way you cannot come back and sue for being wrongfully arrested and thrown into prison. So so they gained their freedom, but still they can't go back and seek any kind of monetary compensation for what they went through. There are some other suspects that I would like to discuss in this case, and one of them is Mark Byers. He's kind of a sketchy dude, just kind of a sketchy dude. Years after all of this happened, Mark's wife mysteriously died. They did an autopsy and they were not able to find out why she died at all. She just went into the hospital and just kind of died, which I find very strange, which doesn't necessarily mean he's a murderer, but I think the other thing that is also very weird is that he had all of his teeth removed and replaced. There were bite marks on the boys' bodies, and a lot of people speculate that he had his teeth replaced so that his bite mark wouldn't match the bite mark that was on the boys' bodies. By replacing his teeth, it would give him a new bite pattern, and he would not be, linked to the murders of the 3 boys. Stevie Branch's stepfather is also someone that people consider in this case. He had a very long history of aggressive behavior. There was also DNA found at the crime scene that belonged to Terry. But again, I think it's important to note that Terry lived with Stevie, and that DNA could have easily been transferred from the home that he shared with Stevie. But Terry was also the last person to be seen with the boys, and Stevie would often talk about how he was afraid of Terry. And his daughter Amanda, Stevie's half-sister, came out years later and said that she was absolutely terrified of him, that he was a vicious man. He was just angry all the time. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about this case. I definitely think that Damien and Jason and Jesse were innocent, and that police got tunnel vision and just decided that they didn't fit into society's mold, and so they were going to go after them for these murders. I do think that the evidence that they had was circumstantial at best, and that they shouldn't have spent the time in prison. Damien has written a couple of books, and he's on YouTube, I believe. He's made a pretty good life for himself. But I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? I think that some of these stepfathers were probably a better person to look at. I think that maybe they should have done a little bit more searching there. But like I said, what are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments. Yeah, I don't know where else to go from here. But again, if you enjoyed my video, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell icon so you can be notified when I upload. I am trying to get a little better at the editing. It's a work in progress. There's a lot to learn here, but we'll get there eventually. One day it'll be there. But anyway, I want to thank you all so much. Again, I'd love to have a conversation down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on this case, but until next time, I'm sending you so much peace and love. Bye.